Ranking Member Mr. McGovern for any comments he wishes to make. Mr. McGovern.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. And, you know, I don't even know where to begin. I agree. I will agree with you. I don't view this as a partisan messaging effort, Madam Chair. I view this as a dangerous effort to disenfranchise, you know, countless American voters from participating in the next election. I mean, this is a new low. You know, this is I'm reading the bill, this is the Save America Act. I have news from my Republican friends. Americans don't want to be saved by you. They don't want you screwing up the next elections. They don't want you to make it more difficult for them to participate in the next election. You know, I mean, and they certainly do not want to have states' voting rolls turned over to Kristi Noem, who right now is overseeing a government agency that is killing innocent Americans in our streets. I mean, this is crazy. So let me just start off this hearing by stating some facts. There is no widespread voter fraud in the United States of America. It is simply not true to say that voter fraud or non-citizens voting is a massive widespread issue. That is not to say that that our system is perfect. We face issues when it comes to cyber attacks, foreign disinformation, intimidation, and violence against election workers. Those are all important issues that we should be addressing today, but we are not. We are not. Instead, we're considering a bill that is fundamentally predicated on a lie. There is extensive documentary evidence that voter fraud, voter impersonation, and non-citizens voting is not a widespread issue. It is a myth perpetrated by people whose real goal is to suppress the rights of American citizens, citizens who are legally and constitutionally entitled to cast their ballot, and to prevent American citizens from participating in our elections. Republicans are pushing the Save America Act because they want fewer Americans to vote. It's that simple. Republicans have looked high and low to find fraud. And you know what they've found? Someone is more likely to get struck by lightning than to vote illegally. Donald Trump's own Voting Integrity Commission was unable to find fraud or massive evidence of fraud. Kansas, Iowa, Florida, I could go down the list of states that have launched commissions and investigations only to reach the same conclusion, that voter fraud is vanishingly uncommon. Now, I think Florida is a good illustration of what happens every time Republicans launch an inquisition into voting fraud. Former Governor Rick Scott claimed that he knew with absolute certainty that there were 182,000 alleged non-citizens registered to vote. But then his investigation starts, and that dwindles down to 198 people. That's not 198,000, it's 198. And in the end, out of those 198, one person was found to have committed fraud. One out of 12 million registered voters at the time. One person. Now, every time these claims are investigated, they disappear like a mirage. But this bill is worse than a solution in search of a problem, because the so-called solution is going to disenfranchise millions and millions of American citizens. Now, we always tell people to vote, make their voices heard, participate in our democracy, right? Those are supposed to be good things. So why are Republicans trying to pass a bill that makes it as hard as possible to vote? That is what this bill does. It makes it harder to register. It makes it harder to vote. It makes it so that every single American citizen must now show up in person to register to vote. So you can file your taxes online, you can bank online, you can get your medical results online, but you have to go back in time 50 years when it comes to registering to vote. You have to show up in person and bring your birth certificate or a passport with you. And good luck if your town clerk isn't open on weekends or at nights, because you will have to take time off from work just to register to vote. Now let's go down the list of people who this is difficult for. Students who don't live at home and have class during the day. Senior citizens and people with disabilities who can't get to town hall easily. Service members and military families who are deployed overseas or relocated frequently and don't have the luxury of chasing paperwork. A passport costs upwards of $130 now. In my hometown of Worcester, it costs $15 to get your birth certificate mailed to you. So not only do you have to massively inconvenience yourself to register if you want to vote, you have to pay. It's a modern-day poll tax. And no, people can't just use their license or a state ID to register, since state IDs and driver's licenses don't include proof of citizenship. Even most of the new real IDs don't meet the bill's requirements. Speaking of real ID, it took decades and decades and billions of dollars to implement. And now they expect us to believe, with primaries in, 3 weeks? And the general election in 9 months, that this won't be a complete disaster, disenfranchising millions, keeping them from voting? But then again, that may be the point of all of this. And here's what really bothers me. This isn't just another Republican solution in search of a problem. It's much, much more dangerous than that. It's part of MAGA's ongoing attempt to rig elections and hold on to power, democracy be damned. U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi tried to shake down the Minnesota state government by saying ICE will withdraw if they hand over their voting rolls. Remember that? That was just recently. And we've all heard the president talk about, quote, nationalizing elections and urging Republicans to, quote, take over the voting. Now, let me be clear what this is about. It's about Republicans trying to rig the next elections. I get it. The polls look lousy for you. You're not very popular right now. And so I think this is your last-ditch effort to try to hold on to power. The FBI raided an election office in Fulton County, Georgia, and seized 2020 election records, ballots, tabulator tapes, voter rolls, with Trump's director of the NSA, Tulsi Gabbard, present. Yet the last time I checked, after an extensive investigation, the only fraud in Georgia is when Donald Trump told the Secretary of State there to, quote, find 11,800 ballots so that he could be declared the winner. Yet the federal government is seizing ballots, yet again in search of this mystical, widespread voter fraud that we are always told exists. Never see any evidence of it. Certainly never see any evidence that it has impacted the results of an election. Remember that guy Mike Lindell, the pillow guy? He was ordered to pay millions in defamation charges after he lied about voting machines being rigged. And let's not forget the president's former chief of staff, Mark Meadows. His former campaign lawyers, Rudy Giuliani, and others were actually indicted for their roles in trying to fraudulently overturn the last election. If we want to talk about voter fraud, let's talk about how Donald Trump's campaign didn't like the outcome in 2020, so they recruited fake electors, forged documents, and tried to throw millions of ballots in the trash by substituting phony paperwork so they could cling onto power after they lost. Maybe if Republicans want to go after voter fraud, they ought to start by investigating themselves. But what we aren't going to do is sit here and get lectured about voter fraud from the same people who tried to overturn an election. Because Democrats believe in democracy, and we believe in the basic American principle that voting is a right and not a privilege. Now, Republicans know their ideas are unpopular. They see the writing on the wall this November, and instead of trying to win fair and square, they don't want to, they want to cheat. They're hoping that this bill will pass and will make it so hard to vote that many American citizens will just give up. Not on my watch, not on the watch of my Democratic colleagues, and I hope there are some Republicans here who will stand with us on this. Too many people have fought too hard to secure the right to vote for everyone in this country. Generations of people have fought and died for that right. And we will not let Republicans use bullshit claims and lies about voter fraud to rip the right to vote away from American citizens. With that, I yield back my time.
Thank you, Mr.